Okay. And before I go now to the other goal or whatever, I think now might be the time since we just talked about how it is. One of the things I got frustrated about, I was like, why in the world, how do we give up those two goals? We keep giving it, and Pineda keeps pointing out, and he said something that I watched the whole press conference, and he said something that was true, which is he's like, it's not like we're getting broken down by great attacks, and he's right. Right. And then he goes on to say the conclusion is that it's just individual mistakes. And that's where I think he's wrong.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's individual mistakes, but it's individual mistakes that we're not covering up for because the tactics are bad, right? And it's also individual mistakes because the other aspect of it is, like for example, Wiley there, right? I am not arguing if you're out there saying, don't you think that was an individual mistake that Wiley made? He gave that ball away. Yes, absolutely. And there's one case where I said,
but it's an individual mistake by Muyamba for not getting he could have put
yes,
his leg in front of that and gotten fouled
yes.
even.
So how do you avoid that? So what Pineda would tell you is you need the perfect concentration. You never need to make that mistake. What I would tell you is you need tactics to cover it, right? We should have stepped up and covered it even after that ball was given up. But most importantly, if you have in this game, do you want to know what our possession was?
Do tell. But yeah, to your point, even on that play, like our center back should have stepped. The one center back should have stepped much earlier once they saw Moyamba.
I actually looked at it a lot of times to see how bad it was at Brahm, and there was another runner, and I don't think it was horrible for a Brahm. So I think the major flaw in that was the giveaway. But I honestly, that all being said, if that's Stian, do I think he makes that play? Probably, because he would have gambled more and made the play. But in any case, we had 68% possession.
Really?
Okay, 68, and gave up 2 goals. How does that happen? Okay. And this is what I want to point out. So I was like, the problem I said on that play, you're like, how do you avoid that, Dave? Like, how do you avoid that tactically? And my answer is the only way you avoid that tactically is by not having Wiley have to do that 8-10 times a game. He only has to do that once a game, and then his chances of making that mistake are much lower. Yeah. So you have to avoid the teams when you have 68% possession. They should never be in our end, right? And how do you know they're not in our end, right? Because what we know is that they had 32% possession. How do you know whether they're in their end? I'm like, okay, well, how do you know when they're in? You look at the proxies for it. There are advanced analytics, but I don't have access to that. The proxies are for that is corners and shots.
Yeah.
Okay. So for 68% possession, how many shots did we give up, and how many corners did we give up?
I think that they had I want to say like a 7-to-1 shot ratio, something like that.
We
as in Minnesota had 7-to-1 over us.
No.
Really?
No, the shots were 20-12. Okay, so we had 20 shots.
And the reason I'm saying it is because I think someone told me in the first half it was 7-to-1.
Okay.
And so that's kind of carrying over for the full 20 to what, 12?
20-12. We had 20 shots and they had 12. Okay. So they still, despite 32%, they got 12 shots and they had 9 corners, right? 9 corners with 32% possession. Okay. So I'm like, that means they were up the field a lot for 32% possession, right? So then I was like, okay, is that for real? Or is that like just, the fluke and whatever? So I said, all right, it's time to do the deep dive, right? Let's start with the greatest possession team that I can think of, right? That always possesses the ball, Man City.
Yep.
Okay. So I said, all right, if you're Man City, how much possession do you have? How many corners do you give up per game in their last 10, the exact same number we have? And how many shots do they give up per game? Okay. So Man City averages 66 possession, 66%
possession,
which is very similar to what we had in this game.
Yeah.
Okay. So I just told you we gave up 12 shots and 9 corners. Do you know how many shots that they averaged giving up?
No.
7.
Okay.
Okay, it's not 12. This is a very good team, obviously. Yeah. How many corners did they give up? So, like, how many times did they get up the field and get corners?
3 or 4.
3.
Okay.
Okay. So that's way, way better. And then you're like, okay, I can see you out there on the podcast rolling your eyes. I'm like, that's Man City. That's unreasonable. I would actually potentially argue that our squad could be the Man City of MLS. We're not as good as Man City or anything like that, but we could be that good with Domin's squad. But let's say, all right. So I said,
but it's also MLS, right? So this is, the stats, right, should hold up for the best potential team, which we think Atlanta United.
So I said, all right, let's look at our last 10 games. Maybe this was a fluke, right? So in their last 10 games, our average possession was 55. Okay, so it's not the 60, whatever I just said we were, 60.
68 or 69.
Yeah.
You're going to tell me there was more shots on goal and then less corner kicks?
So we give up an average of, with 55%, we give up 15 shots per game. 15.
Oh.
That's a lot. And you know how many corners we give up?
8.
We give up 5.3.
5.3.
Okay. All right. So now that's not as good as Man City, right? But you're like, okay. So then I said, all right, who is the team who we want to be the most like in the MLS, who I think our squad is the most like? Columbus. Okay. So Columbus, let's go here. So Columbus has an average of, you want to guess possession wise?
64.
Yeah.
I guess.
I'll take lower, 60.
It's exactly 60. Brilliant guess. Yeah. Okay, so they have 60 compared to us 55. So it's ballpark, they're a little better. Okay. How many shots against did they give up? We give up 14.9, 15 basically. How many do they give up?
8.
Carmen?
I'll go 9.
They give up 9.7. Okay.
Right.
So it is not like 3 or something. It's not like Man City good.
Yeah.
But it's still a good over 5 shots less than us. Okay. Now, how many corners do they give up? We give up 5.3.
Let's go with 3 then.
Yeah.
It's going to go 3 too.
They gave up 3.2. Okay. So I said, all right. So they have a little more possession than us. What about Cincinnati? That's the other team that we might say we consider as good as us. What's Cincinnati's possession?
Let's go with 58.
Ooh, that's a good one. I'll go lower, 57.
Their possession is only 52.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's lower than ours. So you say, okay, their possession is lower. They should be giving up more shots. We gave up 15 shots. How many do they give up?
11.
10.
It's 11.9, 12.
Oh,
so we give up 15. They give up 12, right? Even though they have a lot less possession. So it's not huge numbers, but we're giving up considerably more shots than Columbus and considerably more shots than Cincinnati, despite having better possession than Cincinnati, almost as good as Columbus. How many corners are they giving up?
Which team are we on? Let's go 3 again.
4.
Yeah, they actually give up 5.7. It's almost exactly as us.
Okay.
So they're giving up the same amount of corners. So if you look at where we are, right, what you would say is that the teams that have similar possession than us are giving up definitely far fewer shots. And overall, probably a little fewer corners. I mean, Man City's really aspirational, but I'm really talking about Cincinnati and Columbus. And what that tells me...
They probably also defend quarters better than us, too.
We're going to get to that in a second. But what that tells me is that our system is allowing them, even despite our really high possession, and in a lot of our games, we have an average of 55, but in many of our games, Orlando 59, Colorado 59, Red Bull 55, Charlotte 62. Oh, sorry, I'm reading the wrong one. That's not us.
Oh, no.
Sorry.
Scratch all that.
Minnesota 69, Cincinnati 59, Chicago 64, Philly 63. Right. I mean, we've had a number of games where we were really high. Right. And we're still giving up the 2 goals to most of those. Right. And so what I'm saying is they're getting up too easily. And I think we just showed you why on the clip. It's mostly this, not only this outside leaving the guy open, but it's also a lack of us winning the ball up high. If we got it shut down there, if we freed Muyumba, we would not be we'd probably give up more like Columbus, which is giving up 5 fewer shots than us. You give up 5 fewer shots, that fluky goal, that second goal, goes away, and you end up with more shots offensively.
And Abram doesn't have to back up anymore.
And Abram doesn't have to back up, and Muyumba's not frustrated, because that's the other thing that doesn't show up. You say, well, that's not his fault tactically, and you're like, and it ends up sort of, you don't say, okay, Muyumba should never get frustrated just because whatever. Yeah. But if you're not playing well, you tend to not do well.
Yeah.
And then you get, beat on an easy ball, square ball to you, and the guy just runs right by. Muyumba's the biggest freaking guy on the field in terms of width.
Right.
There's no way that guy should have gotten around and beat him to that ball.
Yeah.